Hi there. Thank you. Thanks for this. So, as Nancy mentioned, we're going through a huge transformation at Anheuser-Busch InBev, and that's happening particularly on one of our most iconic brands, which is Budweiser. And it's really fun to be here after the Super Bowl and seeing what we've done with television spots. And that's our heritage. When you think of Budweiser, you think of America and heritage and history and the Super Bowl. They're inextricably linked. And so we've had this great run of producing great TV spots, but it's time for us to change. And I'm really excited to be here and part of that change with this company. And I like the word transformation. I think that Scott had mentioned that around American Express. And that's really what our goal is at Anheuser-Busch InBev, is to really transform the way that we think about marketing. And I'll show you some examples of how we've done that. And it's really about sweating our assets for content. That's kind of the rallying cry for us internally. So you might hear that from some of my colleagues as well, is really figuring out how we can get the most out of our assets. And for the most part, a lot of those assets, especially here in the US, are sports assets, but also globally. And the story really begins with our experience in FIFA World Cup 2010. We were the official beer of the 2010 FIFA World Cup, and we kind of created this platform in addition to a lot of great ads that ran and wonderful, on-premise activations called Budweiser United. And the idea here was that we wanted to unite beer drinkers around the world around the World Cup, because there's such a great sort of global community that happens around the World Cup. And Budweiser, as being the world's first truly global beer brand, really has the right to play in that space. And we had a couple of goals as it relates to impressions and engagement and all that great stuff. But we also wanted to match or outrank our global peers like Coke and Adidas, Visa, McDonald's. And we really did a pretty good job of that. And the reason why was this great program that we had called the Bud Cup and the Bud House. So what we did was invite, through social channels, each participating country in the World Cup to also field an amateur team of their own. So this was a 6v6 tournament. And every country, every team, every neighborhood has their own sort of local team that likes to get together. We're a sponsor of the FA Cup in the UK. If you're familiar with that, it's the giant killer, because any sort of local team can go up against Arsenal and potentially beat them. So it's this great way to sort of mimic what's happening with the World Cup and get the countries really excited about it. We hosted them in South Africa at the Bud House, and we just ended up filming them just to sort of get some great content, and it turned into one of the most exciting content plays that we've ever done. We've got more views on YouTube out of this. We've got more excitement, really activated in social channels, and that was kind of the aha moment for us to say, wait a minute, we don't have to just simply slap our logo on next to the FIFA World Cup, cross our fingers and hope that actually drives brand equity. We can start to create real stories that advance Budweiser's unique positioning in the marketplace. And it really was a new outlet for social fandom, enabling that global conversation. And the World Cup is really one of the best ways to start to enable that global conversation. The speed and volume of that conversation took us by surprise. The 6v6 tournament wasn't necessarily the cornerstone of our activation. And it's always funny to start to see that activation really start to pick up and say, hey, that's cool. And it starts to get really big, and then you say, oh no, what do we do now? We have to really kind of respond to this. And the team that activated in South Africa really stood up to the plate and did that. What we really loved too, that it was an outlet for national pride for sure. Everyone was rallying around the Ukraine or rallying around Paraguay, and when they actually got knocked out of the tournament, they transferred their affections and their fandom to another team. Because that's what's really great about sports. And I think we saw that last night. I mean, the ads were absolutely terrific, but the game was really exciting. How do you get more drama than a last-minute Hail Mary pass? There's something so fantastic about the drama associated with sports that you can really start to tap into if you're a brand like Budweiser, and you can really take advantage of that. So it's a big space for us to play in, and it's something that we wanted to really start to think about. And that's a huge shift for us internally. I don't know if other marketers kind of feel this way too, but it's incredibly important for us to stop just thinking about ads, and that is a really hard habit to break and a really hard behavioral change to really make. And we sort of took a cue from what P&G did years and years and years ago with Ivory soap and soaps. How do we actually maybe take something that we own uniquely, which are sports properties and other kinds of sports entertainment initiatives, and turn that into content that really makes sense? Because our traditional approach was no longer working. It was, it does not deliver on consumer expectations, and it wasn't working for us. So this is kind of how we operated, right? We'd concept test and produce a 30-second TV spot, a couple $100,000, air the ad numerous times at several $1 million. Do the same for all the other assets, and that's it. You slap a logo on there, show a great product shot, a couple of baseball players, over and out, and then you just, do a reach and frequency kind of play for that. This wasn't working for us anymore. We were starting to become wallpaper, and people would just glaze over when they would see the Budweiser logo, and it wasn't doing anything for our brand health metrics. So we knew we needed to change. And doing that was creating ownable platforms. So we want to appear larger within those assets to avoid being wallpaper. How do we really tell the story, the unique story of Budweiser through that content, and not just sponsored by Budweiser or brought to you by Bud Light, or this was underwritten by this particular brand. We want to create lasting participatory platforms that unite beer drinkers around what we own and what they love. That was the big insight from FIFA World Cup. And this is what we're doing. It's our first real foray into content that we are developing ourselves, and it's called The Big Time. And it's the first global social reality competition. We actually sourced the competitors from Facebook, and we did it kind of quietly over the summer, last summer. And what we were able to find were amazing personal stories of people who had a great dream, and for one reason or another, life kind of got in the way. We'll show you a sizzle reel in a second to give you a flavor of this, but one of my favorite stories was a baseball prospect who, really, coming out of high school, went a couple of years of college, was being scouted by professional baseball scouts, and really, this guy was on the precipice of really making it big, diagnosed with cancer, had to put his baseball career on hold, went into remission, and now we're giving him the shot to actually get a contract back with the St. Louis Cardinals. That's an amazing story. And this guy, it's such an emotional, cool thing for us to do as the brand, but also to hear that story of everyday people who have done extraordinary things, and we're giving them a second chance to do those extraordinary things. So because we have assets in all these different places, NASCAR, we have relationships with CAA and with the U.S. military, actually, lots of different ways and forays in which we can deliver on a lot of these dreams, because that's how we connect as humans, and that's what we rally around. And so we can make these things happen. So I actually saw something in Scott's presentation before that, the brand as a facilitator is a really interesting place to be, and that's exactly where Budweiser is playing in this scenario as well. So I'll give you guys a little taste of what this programming actually looks like.
My dad was my first coach, so I wanted to be the best to make my dad proud.
I feel like as long as I can go fast, I got nothing to lose.
It's been 4 years since I played baseball. I never thought I'd have this shot.
Good job, buddy. Real nice job.
This one is my last big shot to show myself as a player.
You're actually throwing the ball really well. You're just missing spots by a little bit. Ready to do this?
Yeah, that's the plan. We're ready to go.
I hope I crush my competition.
Y'all ready to go? Hopefully have fun today.
I believe that true passion
Let the good times begin.
will get me to where I need to be.
Thank you guys so much. So that's our program. It's actually already airing on ABC on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in. And it's a really fantastic program that delivers not only on the assets that Budweiser has, which are eternal optimism and the fact that great times are waiting, this idea that there's hope for something that's, there's always hope for something that's new and better. You know, we partnered with some other experienced content partners to really make this happen. You know, the suggestion that, you know, we as the brand, our content producers, we make beer, and we make beer pretty well. That's not to suggest that we are a production house ourselves, but we're partnering with the best in class to make sure that we can tell those great stories about Budweiser in the best way possible. So production and distribution with Fremantle and Radical. We chose these guys also because they have a lot of great international experience. One of the things we learned certainly out of FIFA, and we're learning out of the big time, is that if you're creating the content with some basic human emotion involved, it doesn't matter if it's hockey and it's running in Brazil. It doesn't matter if it's football and it's running in the UK. That passion and drama associated with sports is a global, universal emotion that you can tap into. So that's something that we've actually really applied to developing the content here too. We actually hired Evan Weinstein, who's an Emmy-winning producer of The Amazing Race, to help us with this as well. So we've really got, you know, some great talent behind this, and it's been incredible so far. We've seen amazing ratings, but more importantly, we've seen the social graph really start to blow up and really start to support this in an interesting way. And this is also changing the way that we measure and the way that we actually test and develop content. You know, a lot of our measurement has traditionally been maybe you know, a couple of guys in a room in a focus group watching the content and seeing whether or not, you know, that was something that they would enjoy. And then of course there's always the CEO, CMO focus group, the all-important focus group of two. But we're really moving away from that and really starting to take a much more analytical approach to measurement, both in pre-testing and then of course being able to optimize it on the fly. So we have a partnership with Next TV, and we have for a really long time. It's incredibly interesting to see us actually now start to adopt this for digital platforms as well and digital content, because digital content, even if we're talking about a television program, is really the cornerstone of this program. And that's where we expect the greatest amount of engagement to happen with consumers. So our TV results, you know, are obviously a one score that tell you about reach and persuasion and brand equity and whether the key messages are being delivered. But the digital results are really interesting because, you know, sure, clicks and shareability, and whether or not they're searching for more information. You know, another way that we're looking at this is, you know, likelihood to click on the ad, the intent to search, and the shareability of it. These are slightly different metrics than what we actually measure television on, and it's been a long journey to rally us around this internally, because it's, you know, we've tested television for so long and everyone's so comfortable with that, but this data has been really incredible in helping us figure out what is working in that particular spot, what's not working in that particular piece of content, how we can change it, and how we can optimize it. We also do some biometrics associated with this too. So there's some moment-by-moment analysis. This I just took from another piece of content that we actually wanted to run in both the US and the UK. So you can see, you know, on a second-by-second basis how people are responding to the different pieces of content. And so when we're testing this beforehand, instead of going out and just going ahead and spending, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars to develop a TV spot, we can get some learnings before that and start to apply it to the actual production value. We've saved an incredible amount of production resources in being able to get this information prior to shooting anything, and that's been incredibly valuable for us as well. And as I said before, the digital assets really are the cornerstone of this program. I think we're using talent in a much more interesting way. You know, Alex Morgan is one of the kind of celebrity mentors for our soccer episode. And, you know, one tweet from Alex Morgan, I think maybe 7 or 8 days ago, actually caused our buzz tracking to go up, you know, enormously, and the awareness levels to go up enormously. Whereas before, we maybe would just have used Alex Morgan in the actual, you know, TV spot itself, and, you know, would have had a good relationship with her. But we're starting to see that not only are we able to ask our talent for the ability to tweet on our behalf, but also that they're actually just as interested in doing it too. And that's something that, it's mutually beneficial for us. AC Green is another talent that we have in the basketball episode, and we're working with him in similar ways. And what's been interesting for us from a marketing perspective is that we get to kind of behave like a television show or like a movie studio or like anything that you want to launch in a big way. So lots of tune-in drivers that are vertically aligned, testing and learning from that, and really kind of launching this program with a big splash. It's been really fun for that team to work on. And when we're talking about whether or not we think this works and how the initial results that we're seeing, I mean, sure, there's ratings that we're looking at, overnight ratings, and that's been very strong. But what we've established internally is that healthy brands equal strong sales. Strong brands today is top line growth tomorrow. The ability for us to be able to grow our brands, even established brands like Budweiser, really depends on brand health. So when we look at all of these different metrics, we're really pulling this in, and we can attribute directly all of this great social activity and positive buzz to brand health metrics, which then help us translate into moving cases of beer off the shelf. And that great content, those learnings are something that again we've seen that really establish us as a global brand. Because the Super Bowl was last night, and because I did want to tie this into the Super Bowl in some fashion, I thought it would be interesting to show you a new example of how we're applying these testing and learning mechanisms to content all the time. And again, this is such a massive shift for us internally in thinking about how to produce content in a different way. So the Big Time is our first big show and program that we have that's running on ABC and within our own YouTube channels and everywhere you turn. We also had a Super Bowl spot that you probably didn't see last night unless you were Canadian and you had a Canadian IP somehow. And this was a spot that was actually produced for Canada. And it's a 2-minute sort of mini movie. And all of the learnings that we had from the Big Time, from the FIFA World Cup, were all applied in developing this content that we had for this particular spot. We leaked it online, I think it was Thursday morning. And actually, this is even out of date. We're north of 2 million views as of this morning, or early this morning. And overwhelmingly positive buzz. We also launched this in 7 global markets. So it's a Canadian spot. It ran in Canada, and we actually posted it in the US, which makes a lot of sense. We posted it in Russia. We posted it in Brazil. We posted it in Paraguay, and we shared it in China. This is something that, because it's the story and when you see it is so emotionally compelling, that it makes sense that this is something that is unique and interesting for all those markets. Anyone have any idea, if you're talking about Canada and Super Bowl and Budweiser, what this content might be about? Hockey. Canadians love their hockey. So when we originally kind of looked at this, I said, well, we can talk to the other markets about this, but I just don't know if hockey is really going to, the Brazilians are really going to get into hockey. But it's such a fantastic story that I challenge any of you not to get a little misty when you see this particular piece of content. So let me show you what all the learning, all the great mind shifts that we've been able to establish internally have wrought. And let's roll the flash fans from Canada.
Couple of minute warm up, and then we're going to start the game.
We've got 1 minute until this big moment. 30 seconds until this moment's going to happen.
They're not expecting us, so let's get loud.
We're going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. the Generals and Les Amigos putting on quite a show tonight.
Buckle up those chin straps. It's going to get wild.
Selecki skating it on Coatsy. Oh, he moves it.
A laser beam.
They are fired up tonight. Samet shoots. He scores!
Samet ties the game.
It is hot in the house here.
And the chicken is loving it.
It's sudden death overtime.
Oh, mama!
We have a kerfuffle. Here's a shot. He scores!
Oh, my goodness. What an ending.
This is hockey. This is hockey.
Not that I was ever in the professional leagues anywhere. However, this is how I would imagine it would be.
Unbelievable. It's crazy. I can't believe, like, all that and, like, all those people, like, it was so cool. Great experience.
So yeah, that was, I mean, but you can see how that applies to, you know, the Brazilian guys who've got, you know, their rec football leagues, you know, in China for basketball. I mean, it's just this great idea that if you really love sports and if you really believe in this, that there's a brand behind you that's supporting you all the way. So that's sort of the culmination of all of these great learnings. It's made our creative better. It's made us more content producers instead of ad producers. It's made our production quality better and more efficient, certainly. And it's made the measurement associated with it something that's really tangible and something that we can really start to apply for the future. So it's an incredibly exciting time for us at Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch InBev that we can actually make this big shift internally for such a big brand, and we're starting to see the results from that. So that's all I've got today, but any questions, comments, complaints? We can start with this.
That was absolutely terrific. I think what we'll do is invite your co-presenters from Clear Spring up, and then once they're through with their content, we'll open it up to Q&A if there's time, and there should be. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Bethany Riley and Tina McCain, both from Clear Spring. They both have long histories in digital media, and they're going to share with us on the cusp of a lot of sports marketing that we just discussed. They're going to share with us some data around the impact of a Super Bowl ad in digital channels post-show. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Nancy. My name is Bethany Riley, as she said, and this is my colleague Tina McCain. We're from Clear Spring. And today we're just briefly going to describe to you and share with you how big advertisers and creating content and data play a role in advertising and blurring the lines of media. So right here, just following on the tails of Budweiser, the big time, them creating this show is great with them connecting with their audience, creating brand awareness, and actually tapping into the emotional sense. And it just is a great show that they've been producing, and it's definitely blurring the lines, as I had said. Another example here is Being Girl by P&G. They created a website to help females have a go-to place to find answers about women's health needs and questions that maybe they're not comfortable asking. So that was a really good example about how advertisers can use and custom create this content to actually engage users, create brand awareness, generate sales, and also creating brand loyalty amongst their customers.
I'm going to scoot over a little bit so I can see. Okay. So, you know, as Bethany was stating, the lines between paid, earned, and owned media, they're definitely blurring. And, you know, social media not only affects the way we interact with each other, but it's also affecting the way we interact with brands, and it's affecting the way we interact with media as well. You know, that being said, social tools and social data can be used for each of these different media types in a way that they can inform and inspire each other. So, you know, what we really wanted to do today was to use an example, and we're going to use the Super Bowl as an example, and what we want to show you is how the Super Bowl affected user behavior and social sharing last night. So I guess you need me to, is it this one?
Yeah, green.
Oh, shoot, sorry. Okay, so before I kind of go into the data a little bit, just a real quick description of how we get to the data. So ClearSpring owns AddThis, which is a social sharing tool. We're installed on about 11 million sites. So due to that, we're able to see search queries, we're able to see site-level data, and then we're also able to see what's being socially shared and how that's being shared as well. Okay, so kind of getting into the data and what was happening last night. First of all, for those of you in mobile, social sharing was up in mobile by about 500% last night. So that was a great number. And social sharing in total was up about 143%. So going over this first chart, we started to track the behaviors about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, and we were just looking at the social buzz around both the Giants and the Patriots. And the blue is basically showing the social buzz, the positive feedback that was happening around the Giants. So for you Giant fans, you definitely cover the whole U.S. map here. Okay, then another thing that we were taking a look at was the lift in interest by brand. So here's a list of several of the Super Bowl advertisers, and we were looking at the interest in those brands and the online activity that was going on the day before the Super Bowl and then the day of the Super Bowl. And each of these advertisers probably had success for different reasons, but a couple ones that really stood out here. Teleflora stood out, and I can just speculate that maybe it was one that didn't get a lot of activity, not one we're quite as familiar with. So the Super Bowl ad did have a really big effect there. Doritos is another one that stands out. I don't think that they've been doing as much advertising around some of the big sporting events, so maybe that's one of the reasons they saw a big bump as well. And then this chart looks very complicated, especially considering the fact that we got this content at 6:30 this morning. But anyway, this is just a lift in interest by minute. So we were taking a look at the data from about 5 o'clock last night until the time that the game was over, and looking at, again, several different Super Bowl advertisers. And the thing that stands out here is that you absolutely see the lift during the time of the commercial. Now, in this particular situation, Chevy really did the best with a 2,000% increase during one of their ad spots, and then Budweiser was second. So way to go, Erin. But I think that's it for that one. Okay, and then Bethany's going to take it.
So, and then just following on the heels of Budweiser, we thought it would be interesting to do an interest in Budweiser, the brand, at the time of the Super Bowl. And what we noticed across the board was the most interest was in Colorado, which is interesting. Maybe it was Coors doing some competitive research during the Super Bowl. But across the board, we really noticed that there was a strong interest in the Budweiser brand through the Midwest during the Super Bowl. And then here, this is, I guess this kind of states the obvious, as even to your point, Erin, about just Facebook being very important. And of course, the Facebook brand, the most shares and clicks across the board was with Facebook. But also that was interesting here is email compared to Twitter. Although they're pretty close as far as shares, definitely email, we're seeing a lot more clicks as opposed to Twitter. And then lastly, of course, everyone wants to talk about the halftime show. So as you can imagine, the most interest, this is an interest graph here across the world with her, Madonna having a worldwide tour coming up. That's kind of why we decided to look at the world. But of course, North America, you're going to see the most interest, but it was interesting to see that more people in Canada were searching and clicking and engaging with Madonna subject rather than in America where the actual show was. And so that concludes it, and if any of this content rubbed you the wrong way, let's try to rub you the right way with, at 2:30 tomorrow, we'll be outside offering massages, as well as at the spa. If you mention ClearSpring, you get 10% off.
That's excellent. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. So you're really measuring a lot of that second screen behavior as people are viewing. So it's terrific and informative. Erin, if you want to take the stage real quick just to see if we have any questions for you. And if not, I know that you're going to be around the summit for the next 2 days. Any questions for Erin? Kurt's got one in the back.
Hi, Adam Kimmick with Walgreens. So I'm a reformed agency person, working client side, and I've gone back and forth both times. The data from ClearSpring is interesting because it shows that the Doritos crowdsourced ad, which costs minuscule amounts of money to make, continues to basically beat the traditional big box agencies. As you're shifting towards content and kind of content distribution and content ownership, how does that start to change the philosophy with which InBev AB is working with their agencies, which have traditionally been spend on multi-million-dollar production with DDB, Goodby, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm also a former agency person, and I actually worked on the original Doritos program when I was at OMD. So I know a lot about that scenario, and that is something that is of keen interest to AB InBev in general. We have a little bit of a different challenge because we are an alcohol brand, and so we want to behave as responsibly as possible, especially when we're talking to our consumers, asking them to produce things on our behalf. So it gets a little bit tricky just because of who we are. But absolutely, it's changing the way that we're working with agencies 100%. And I think, if you got anything out of my presentation is that we're going through a mindset shift, and we're going through a real philosophical change in the way that we approach this, and that's certainly affecting the agencies. And I think the biggest shift is that we're really taking a data-driven approach to it, so that if this is the funniest TV spot that you have ever seen, or the greatest, most viral video, if it's not measuring up to brand health metrics that we know drives actual sales of the product, we're not interested in it. And that's a big difference from sitting in a room watching 50 different versions of already produced spots and seeing which ones are going to go into the Super Bowl, which is how it used to be. So I think we're looking for agency partners that share that philosophy and who are willing to take that kind of data-driven approach, creativity, but still within this realm of driving sales. So we've made a lot of changes to the Bud Light roster as of late. And you saw some of the work that those guys have produced, McGarry Bowen and Translation last night. Yes, absolutely. I don't necessarily see us moving full-fledged into the Doritos model of user-generated or user-supported, but we are looking for different agency partners with different perspectives.
We have time for one more question back here.
Hi, Brittany Billings with One to One Global. Being in a regulated industry, how do you approach social media and the content and the connections that you make?
Yeah, it's challenging because it's also a self-regulated industry by and large. And as the world's largest brewer, we often have to take the highest road possible when it comes to social and engaging with consumers in a responsible way. But I think we've come up with some really interesting solutions that help us get there. Certainly, Facebook has been a great partner of ours. You can't like our page unless you're 21 or above, and obviously different ages in different markets. They've been able to really nicely set that up for us, so we feel confident when we develop that community, that we're developing it among the right consumers. We actually just came out with a partnership with a company called Mosaic out of Toronto, and they've helped us build a global age gating solution for Twitter, which also helps us be more responsible in those kinds of environments. So it is challenging. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that oftentimes marketing and legal and compliance don't have a couple of lively discussions around the topic, but we know it's really important for us to behave responsibly. So by and large, we're always pushing forward on that envelope. It's not going to be as exciting as something that a Doritos or a Pepsi could do, but we think we're pushing as hard as we can while maintaining a level of responsibility.
All right, thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.